Imagine you're sitting at a crossroads. One road is labeled reaction. It's the path most people take. It's crowded, noisy, and full of people complaining about how unfair life is. The other road is action, quieter, more uncertain, but it's where change begins. That's exactly where Stephen Covey starts his legendary book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And the first habit, be proactive, is the foundation for everything else. Covey begins with a radical truth. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our freedom to choose. That single idea, that we are not victims of our circumstances, but the creators of our responses, is revolutionary. Most people live in what Covey calls the reactive mode. When things go wrong, they blame the weather, the economy, their boss, their parents, their past, even luck. It's easy to give away our power like that. But Covey argues, effective people don't wait for conditions to change, they change their conditions. To be proactive means taking responsibility, not in the "I'm guilty" sense, but in the literal sense of the word, responsibility. The ability to choose your response. Let's make this real. Imagine your day starts terribly. You spill coffee, miss your cab, and your colleague snaps at you. In that moment, you have 2 choices. You can either react and let the rest of your day spiral, or pause, that tiny space Covey talks about, and decide how you want to respond. You could say, okay, this moment doesn't define my day. I'll handle this. That's proactivity. You're not letting outside forces hijack your inner state. Covey explains this beautifully using 2 circles, the circle of concern and the circle of influence. The circle of concern includes all the things you care about but can't control: the economy, politics, traffic, other people's opinions. The circle of influence includes the things you can control: your habits, your behavior, your reactions. Reactive people spend all their energy worrying about the circle of concern. Proactive people invest in their circle of influence. And here's the twist: the more you focus on what you can control, the more your influence grows. It's like life's ultimate paradox. When you stop trying to control everything, you actually gain more control. Covey gives the example of Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps. Frankl realized that even when everything was taken from him, his clothes, his freedom, his family, he still had one freedom left: to choose his attitude. That discovery became the foundation of logotherapy, and a living proof of Covey's idea. Being proactive also means shifting your language. Words matter. Listen to how people talk. Reactive people say, "There's nothing I can do." Proactive people say, "Let's find a way." Reactive people say, "He makes me so mad." Proactive people say, "I choose to feel calm." It's not just semantics, it's the language of empowerment. Now, Covey isn't saying you should suppress emotion or ignore pain. Being proactive doesn't mean being robotic. It means you acknowledge emotion, but you don't become it. You rise above it and choose a response aligned with your values. Speaking of values, Covey believes proactivity starts with understanding that our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. You can be born into chaos and still choose character. You can be surrounded by negativity and still choose growth. In one of his seminars, Covey told the story of a man who said, "I'm angry because my wife treats me badly." Covey replied, "Then you're choosing to let her behavior control you. You're surrendering your power." That man was silent, because he realized he could choose a different way to respond, and that choice changes everything. Proactivity is also about acting on values, not feelings. Feelings fluctuate, but values stay steady. For example, if honesty is your core value, you'll speak the truth even when it's uncomfortable. That's how proactive people build trust. They don't react to moods, they respond with principles. Covey calls it the power to pause. Before reacting, proactive people pause and ask, "Is my response consistent with my deepest values?" Imagine if more people did that, on social media, in traffic, in arguments. The world would look very different. So, habit 1 is like the root system of a great tree. Every other habit grows from it. Without proactivity, you can't manage time, habit 3. You can't collaborate, habit 6. You can't lead yourself or others. It's the starting point of leadership. The moment you stop saying, "I am a product of my environment," and start saying, "I am a product of my decisions." To summarize, You are not your feelings. You are not your past. You are not your circumstances. You are your choices. Covey challenges us to live by this truth every day. Because once you take back your power to choose, that's the day your life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. And that, my friend, is where true effectiveness begins. Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you're walking into a large hall filled with quiet murmurs, soft music, and the faint scent of flowers. People are sitting together, some holding tissues, some smiling through tears. You walk closer and realize it's a funeral. And as you approach the front, you see a photograph resting on the stand. It's you. That's how Stephen Covey begins Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. He asks a haunting but powerful question. What do you want people to say about you at your funeral? It's not meant to be morbid. It's meant to shake you awake. Because when you imagine the end, everything in between suddenly becomes clear. Covey teaches that all things are created twice. First in the mind, the mental creation, and then in reality, the physical creation. Think of building a house. You don't start by laying bricks. You start with a blueprint. The clearer the blueprint, the stronger the house. Life is no different. If you don't design your life consciously, you'll end up living by someone else's design. Habit 2 is about clarity, purpose, vision. It's about asking, what kind of person do I want to be? And then letting that vision shape every choice you make. Most people live reactively, drifting through days, reacting to demands, chasing short-term goals without a deeper why. Covey says that's like climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. You might reach the top, but you're in the wrong place. So he invites us to step back and define our personal mission statement. Just like companies have mission statements to guide decisions, we can create one for our lives. A personal mission statement answers questions like, what do I value most? What kind of relationships do I want to build? What legacy do I want to leave? What principles will I never compromise? For example, to live with integrity, to inspire growth in others, and to approach every challenge with courage and kindness. That's not a slogan. It's a compass. When life gets noisy, that statement brings you back to what truly matters. Covey explains that without a clear sense of purpose, we fall into what he calls the scripts written by others, society, family, culture, peers. We chase degrees we don't love, buy things we don't need, or stay in jobs that don't align with our hearts. Habit 2 is about rewriting that script, consciously, deliberately, courageously. Covey gives a powerful analogy. Imagine your life as a road trip. Most people are driving fast, switching lanes, honking, rushing, but few know where they're actually headed. Having a destination changes everything. You can still enjoy the journey, but you'll always know why you're on the road. Let's make this real. Suppose your end in mind is being remembered as a loving parent. Then every day becomes an opportunity to live that value, spending time with your kids, listening to them, showing patience when it's hardest. If your end in mind is to leave a legacy of creativity, then your daily actions will naturally align. Writing, designing, creating, building. Covey often said, management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. Habit 2 is leadership of yourself. He also introduces a tool called the center of life, the idea that we all base our lives around something. For some people, it's money. For others, it's work, pleasure, possessions, or relationships. But every one of these is unstable, they can vanish. Covey suggests centering your life on principles, timeless, universal truths like honesty, respect, compassion, fairness. When your life is principle-centered, you stay grounded no matter what happens. If your job ends, you don't lose your identity. If people disagree with you, you don't lose your peace. If success fades, your sense of worth remains intact. Because you're living from the inside out, not from the outside in. Covey once shared a story of a busy executive who realized he was so focused on career success that he'd become a stranger in his own home. One evening, he read Covey's exercise about writing your own eulogy, and it broke him. He realized he didn't want his kids to say, "Dad was hardworking." He wanted them to say, "Dad was present." That moment changed his entire life direction. That's what begin with the end in mind does. It realigns your compass from achievement to meaning. It also transforms decision-making. When you know your end, every choice becomes easier. Should you take that job? Enter that relationship? Move to that city? You simply ask, does this align with my mission? Without a mission, life feels scattered. With one, it becomes focused, powerful, and peaceful. Covey even recommends creating visual affirmations, writing your mission statement somewhere visible, or designing a life constitution, a short paragraph that defines how you'll live each day. For example, I choose growth over comfort. I choose gratitude over complaint. I choose purpose over noise. Imagine reading that every morning. It would recalibrate your mind like a compass finding north. And here's the deeper truth. Beginning with the end in mind isn't about control, it's about clarity. You can't predict every event, but you can define your direction. It's not about forcing outcomes, it's about choosing alignment. When you know where you're going, storms don't scare you, they just test your sails. So, Habit 2 invites you to step out of autopilot and step into authorship. It says, you are the architect of your life. Don't live by default. Live by design. Because someday, when that final day comes, you'll look back and realize something profound. You didn't just survive life, you created it. Intentionally, consciously, beautifully. And that is the art of beginning with the end in mind. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk, your to-do list staring back at you like a hungry monster. Emails to reply. Calls to return. Notifications piling up. Deadlines screaming for attention. You're working hard, maybe harder than ever, yet somehow you feel like you're running in circles. That's when Stephen Covey steps in with a calm voice and says, the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. That single sentence flips everything we think we know about productivity. Habit 3, put first things first, is about discipline, time management, and self-leadership. But not the usual kind, not about doing more things, but about doing the right things. If Habit 1 was about taking responsibility, and Habit 2 was about vision, Habit 3 is about execution, making sure your daily actions align with your deepest values. It's where intention becomes habit, and habit becomes destiny. Covey introduces one of the most famous frameworks in self-development history, the time management matrix. He divides our activities into 4 quadrants. Quadrant I, urgent and important, crises, deadlines, emergencies. Quadrant 2, not urgent but important, planning, relationships, learning, exercise, spiritual growth. Quadrant 3, urgent but not important, interruptions, meetings, social media, other people's priorities. Quadrant 4, not urgent and not important, scrolling, gossip, mindless entertainment. Now, here's the revelation. Highly effective people live in Quadrant 2. That's where growth happens. That's where peace, purpose, and real progress live. Most people, however, get trapped in Quadrant I, putting out fires all day, or waste hours in Quadrants 3 and 4, reacting to other people's urgencies or distractions. They mistake busyness for productivity. Covey says, you can be busy all day climbing a ladder, only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. Quadrant 2 activities don't scream for attention. No one reminds you to plan your week, spend time with family, or take care of your health. But those are the things that create long-term effectiveness. Let's make it relatable. Think about exercise. It's not urgent, but it's deeply important. Skip it for a week, no crisis. Skip it for a year, and your energy collapses. Or relationships. You can ignore a loved one's call for a day, but keep doing that, and the connection fades quietly. That's the subtle danger. Important things rarely demand your attention, they quietly disappear when ignored. Covey challenges us to flip our lives, to schedule Quadrant 2 activities first. He calls it, putting the big rocks in first. He tells a story used in his seminars. A professor fills a jar with large rocks and asks, is it full? The class says yes. Then he pours in small pebbles, which fill the gaps. Full now? He asks again. Then he adds sand, then water. The jar finally overflows. The lesson: if you don't put the big rocks, your most important priorities, in first, you'll never fit them in later. So, what are your big rocks? Maybe it's family time, health, personal growth, spirituality, or your passion project. Covey says, identify them, schedule them, and protect them, as if your life depends on it. Because it does. This habit is about personal management, managing yourself, not your time. Time passes no matter what you do. What matters is what you choose to fill it with. Covey differentiates between leadership and management. Leadership decides what's important. Management ensures it gets done. Habit 3 is where these two meet, where vision becomes routine. But there's a deeper battle going on here, between what Covey calls the urgent voice and the important voice. The urgent voice shouts, "Answer now! Do it fast! Don't think!" The important voice whispers, "Take time to plan. Rest. Reflect. Focus." Most people live in chaos because they obey the loud voice, not the wise one. Covey suggests a simple weekly ritual. Review your mission from Habit 2. Identify your roles: parent, professional, friend, learner, citizen. Set 1 to 2 key goals per role for the week. Schedule them first before filling in anything else. This transforms planning from a task into an act of self-respect. He also speaks about courage and saying no. Every yes to one thing is a no to something else. If you don't decide what's most important, someone else will. And that's why many people feel overworked and underfulfilled. Their days are full, but not meaningful. Covey writes, you have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, non-apologetically, to say no to other things. This habit also extends to emotional management. Putting first things first means choosing long-term peace over short-term pleasure. It's skipping the argument that doesn't matter. It's choosing to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. It's doing what you need to do, not what you feel like doing. Asterisk. Covey calls this the integrity in the moment of choice. Every time you choose an important thing over an urgent distraction, you strengthen your inner integrity muscle. Over time, you become consistent, calm, and in control. Think of people who seem grounded no matter what. They're not superhuman. They've simply mastered Habit 3. They don't chase everything that moves. They focus on what matters most, and do it with quiet confidence. This habit also redefines success. It's not just achieving goals, it's aligning your actions with your values. It's not doing more, it's doing meaningful. Covey ends this chapter with a reminder that's worth framing. The key to personal management is to organize and execute around balanced priorities. So next time your day feels overwhelming, pause and ask, what are my big rocks today? What truly matters? Because if you fill your life with noise, there'll be no room for meaning. But if you start with what matters, your family, your health, your dreams, everything else will find its place. That's the art of putting first things first, living intentionally, not incidentally. Imagine a world where success isn't a zero-sum game, where your win doesn't mean my loss, where collaboration feels like synergy, not sacrifice. That's the world Stephen Covey envisioned when he wrote Habit 4, Think Win-Win. It sounds simple, right? Think win-win. But beneath that phrase lies one of the deepest mindset shifts you can ever make. Moving from competition to creation, from scarcity to abundance, from ego to empathy. Covey says there are 6 paradigms of human interaction. Win-lose, I get ahead by pushing you down. Lose-win, I'll give in so you can be happy. Lose-lose, if I can't win, neither will you. Win, I'll just focus on me. Win-win, let's find a way where both can benefit. Win-win or no deal, if we can't both win, let's not play. The truth. Most of us are unconsciously conditioned to think win-lose. From childhood, we're taught life is a race: grades, jobs, money, fame. Someone has to lose for another to win. But Covey calls this mindset deeply flawed. Because life isn't chess, it's more like music. The goal isn't to beat the other instrument, it's to play in harmony. He says, win-win is not a technique, it's a total philosophy of human interaction. To understand it, let's look at the win-lose trap. This is the mindset of comparison, measuring success by someone else's scoreboard. It breeds jealousy, fear, and insecurity. Win-lose people are obsessed with being right, not with finding what's right. They dominate conversations, manipulate others, and see relationships as power games. Then there's the lose-win trap, the people-pleaser pattern. These are the kind-hearted ones who avoid conflict at all costs. They say yes when they mean no. They give in, hoping to keep peace, but end up feeling invisible. Covey warns that this kind of niceness isn't kindness, it's weakness disguised as peace. Over time, lose-win people breed quiet resentment, and relationships suffer anyway. And the worst, lose-lose. That's when bitterness takes over. If I can't have it, neither can you. It's revenge, disguised as justice. History, and our daily lives, are filled with lose-lose examples. Business rivalries that destroy both sides, relationships where pride wins over love, or families torn apart because no one would yield. So what's the alternative? Win-win. A mindset built on abundance, respect, and mutual benefit. Covey says win-win requires 3 essential character traits. Integrity, sticking to your values even when it's hard. Maturity, balancing courage with consideration. Abundance mentality, believing there's enough for everyone. Let's unpack these. Integrity means you don't compromise your core principles just to win. You stay true even if it costs you something short-term. Because real success is measured not by results, but by character. Maturity is the balance between courage and kindness. Courage without kindness becomes aggression. Kindness without courage becomes weakness. But when you mix the two, you become powerful, compassionate, and trustworthy. And finally, the abundance mentality. This is the game changer. Scarcity says, there's only one pie, so if you get a bigger piece, mine gets smaller. Abundance says, let's bake a bigger pie. Scarcity fuels jealousy, comparison, and fear. Abundance fuels creativity, generosity, and collaboration. Covey says, win-win flows out of abundance. It comes from a deep sense of personal worth and security. People with an abundance mindset aren't threatened by others' success, they're inspired by it. They know there's room for everyone to shine. You see this difference everywhere, in friendships, workplaces, families. In a win-lose office, everyone hides information, plays politics, and hoards credit. In a win-win culture, people share knowledge, celebrate others' wins, and push each other forward. Covey even redefines negotiation through this lens. He says, win-win or no deal. Meaning, if both sides can't benefit, it's better to walk away with integrity than stay in a deal that poisons trust. Think about that. What if every business, relationship, or political decision followed that principle? Imagine how many conflicts could disappear. Win-win isn't naive optimism. It's principled power. It doesn't mean you always get everything you want. It means you aim for solutions that honor both sides. Let's see this in action. A manager wants an employee to work weekends. The employee values family time. A win-lose leader forces compliance. A win-win leader has a conversation. They find a compromise, flexible hours or shared shifts. Both win. No resentment. No burnout. Just trust. Covey emphasizes, win-win is built on relationships of trust. You can't have win-win outcomes with lose-lose relationships. That's why Habit 4 naturally leads into Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Because you can't create mutual benefit without mutual understanding. But for now, Covey challenges us to start with ourselves. Do you see others as competition or partners? Do you celebrate others' success, or secretly resent it? Do you approach conflict wanting to win, or wanting to grow? He reminds us, win-win is not a personality technique. It's a total paradigm of human interaction. This is leadership at its purest form, not controlling others, but empowering them. Not overpowering, but uplifting. And when you live this way, something magical happens. Trust compounds. People start to rely on you, respect you, and collaborate freely. Because they know, with you, they don't have to lose to feel safe. So, Habit 4 is more than a strategy. It's a revolution of thought. It's the belief that your success and mine can coexist. That we can rise together. And in a world obsessed with competition, that mindset is nothing short of revolutionary. That's what makes leaders truly effective. They don't play the game to win, they change the game so everyone can. Let me ask you something. When was the last time someone truly listened to you? Not nodded, not waited for their turn to speak, but really listened, with empathy, patience, and no agenda. It's rare, right? And that's exactly why habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood, is one of the most life-changing of all. Covey says, most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply. That one sentence exposes a truth about modern communication. We're surrounded by noise, talking, arguing, interrupting, but we're starving for understanding. Most of us have learned to speak, but very few have learned to listen. From childhood, we're taught how to read, write, and talk, but never how to truly hear. Covey says genuine listening requires something more than attention. It requires empathy. Empathy means seeing the world through another person's eyes, feeling what they feel, without judging, correcting, or advising. He calls it empathetic listening. And it's radically different from ordinary listening. Most people use one of these 5 poor substitutes for listening: ignoring, tuning out completely, pretending, saying, aha, while thinking about something else. Selective listening, hearing only what you want to. Attentive listening, paying attention, but only intellectually. Empathetic listening, listening with your heart. Empathetic listening is not about agreeing, it's about understanding. It's saying, I may not share your view, but I honor your experience. Covey explains that when people feel truly understood, their defenses drop, their hearts open, and real communication begins. Until then, you're just exchanging words, not meaning. He uses a powerful metaphor. Trying to diagnose someone before you understand their problem is like prescribing medicine before examining them. Yet that's what we do in relationships every day. We rush to give advice before understanding the person. In business, it looks like managers lecturing instead of listening. In families, it looks like parents hearing their kids but not feeling them. In friendships, it's those moments when someone says, "You don't get me." Covey shares this formula. Seek first to understand equals influence through empathy. Then to be understood equals express yourself with clarity and courage. The order matters, because once you understand others deeply, they naturally become open to understanding you. But if you reverse the order, trying to make them understand you first, you trigger resistance, not trust. Empathetic listening is the bridge between hearts. Let's make this real. Imagine a teenager arguing with a parent. The parent keeps saying, "You should focus more on your studies." The teen says, "You don't care what I feel." The parent insists, "Of course I do." But in that moment, the teen doesn't feel heard, they feel managed. Now imagine the parent says instead, "You seem frustrated. Tell me what's bothering you." The tone changes instantly. The wall drops. That's the magic of habit 5. It transforms arguments into understanding, resistance into cooperation, and relationships into trust. And here's the best part: when you truly understand others, your words gain power. You no longer need to shout to be heard. You speak less, but your words carry more weight, because people trust your intention. Covey says, when you listen with empathy, you give someone psychological air. It's like letting them breathe after holding it in for too long. Now, once understanding happens, we reach habit 6, synergize. If habit 4, think win-win, is about mutual benefit, and habit 5 is about mutual understanding, then habit 6 is about mutual creation. Synergy means the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. In simple words, 1 plus 1 is equal to 3, or 5, or even 10. Because when people truly collaborate, with respect and openness, they create results neither could achieve alone. Covey calls synergy the essence of principle-centered leadership. It's not compromise, it's creative cooperation. Compromise says, "You give up a little, I give up a little." Synergy says, "Let's find a third alternative, something better than what either of us imagined." Think about it. Every great innovation, every successful team, every lasting partnership is built on synergy. It happens when ego dissolves and curiosity takes over. When people stop saying, "I'm right," and start asking, "What can we build together?" Covey uses nature to explain this. He talks about redwood trees, some of the tallest trees on Earth. Their roots don't go deep, they go wide, intertwining with the roots of other redwoods. That's why they can withstand powerful storms. Alone, they'd fall. Together, they stand for centuries. That's synergy, strength through unity. Synergy isn't about agreeing all the time. In fact, it thrives on difference. Covey says, when you value differences, you create opportunities for new insights. The goal isn't uniformity, it's unity. You don't want clones. You want collaboration. He describes 3 levels of communication: defensive communication, low trust, low cooperation; respectful communication, polite, but not creative; synergistic communication, open, trusting, and innovative. At the 3rd level, you don't just exchange ideas, you create them. That's the spirit of every great team, every strong marriage, every visionary company. It's the place where humility meets imagination. But here's the key: you can't reach synergy without empathy. You can't collaborate deeply if you haven't first listened deeply. That's why habits 5 and 6 are inseparable. Understanding leads to connection, and connection leads to creation. Covey beautifully sums it up. Synergy is not just a cooperative activity, it is the creation of a new reality. So next time you face disagreement, pause. Don't rush to convince. Don't plan your rebuttal. Listen. Understand. Appreciate the difference. Because that difference might be the seed of something extraordinary. When you seek first to understand, you open hearts. When you synergize, you open worlds. That's where leadership evolves into legacy. Because the greatest leaders don't just win arguments, they build bridges. And in a world divided by noise and ego, those who practice empathy and synergy aren't just effective, they're unforgettable. Imagine you're walking through a forest and you see a man feverishly sawing down a tree. He's sweating, grunting, exhausted. You notice the saw is dull, barely cutting through the wood. You ask, "Why don't you stop for a moment and sharpen your saw?" He snaps back, "Can't you see I'm busy sawing?" That, Stephen Covey says, is how most people live. We're so busy doing that we forget to renew. We spend all our energy cutting through life's demands, work, goals, relationships, but rarely pause to sharpen the very tool that makes all of it possible, ourselves. And that's what Habit 7, Sharpen the Saw, is all about. It's the habit of self-renewal. The habit that keeps all the other habits alive. Covey calls it preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. He divides this renewal into 4 dimensions: physical, mental, emotional/social, and spiritual. Each one is a pillar that supports your effectiveness. Neglect even one, and your balance starts to crumble. Let's explore them one by one. 1. Physical renewal, caring for the body that carries you. Covey says physical renewal isn't vanity, it's stewardship. Your body is the instrument through which you experience life. Neglect it, and everything else dulls with it. This doesn't mean chasing perfection or punishing discipline. It means respecting your energy. Eating consciously. Sleeping enough. Moving your body daily. He says, your body is a tool, not a toy. Sharpening it means being intentional with how you use it, because physical energy fuels mental clarity and emotional stability. You can't pour from an empty vessel. Rest is not laziness, it's maintenance. 2. Mental renewal, feeding the mind. We live in an age of distraction, scrolling endlessly, consuming shallow content, reacting instead of reflecting. Covey invites us to rise above that noise, to feed our minds, not just occupy them. Mental renewal happens through reading, learning, thinking, writing, and reflecting. It's about lifelong learning, not for degrees, but for depth. He says, the person who doesn't read is no better off than the person who can't. When you keep learning, you stay flexible, creative, and open, essential traits of effectiveness. Covey encourages journaling as a form of reflection, writing not just what happens, but what you think and feel about it. Because wisdom is born not just from experience, but from examined experience. 3. Emotional and social renewal, the heart of connection. Covey reminds us, effectiveness isn't just about goals, it's about relationships. You can be brilliant at your job and broken in your heart, and that's not success. Emotional renewal means nurturing empathy, gratitude, and trust. It means spending time with people who lift you, not drain you. He says, to keep the saw sharp emotionally, we We must practice habit 4, 5, and 6 daily. Think win-win, seek first to understand, and synergize. When you invest in relationships with authenticity, forgiveness, and love, you renew not just others, but yourself. And that's why Covey calls this habit the habit of balance. 4. Spiritual renewal, returning to your center. This is the deepest level, the renewal of purpose and peace. It's not about religion, it's about connection to meaning. For some, it's prayer. For others, meditation, nature, or silence. Covey says the goal is to renew the inner core, the source of your security, guidance, wisdom, and power. When you reconnect with your spiritual center, you remember why you do what you do. It's the difference between movement and meaning. He tells us, if you neglect the spiritual dimension, you lose your center. You begin to live reactively again. So sharpening the saw means maintaining harmony between these 4 areas: body, mind, heart, and spirit. When they're balanced, you live from abundance, not exhaustion. Because burnout isn't caused by doing too much, it's caused by doing too little of what renews you. Covey closes the book with a truth that echoes through all his work. To keep progressing, you must never stop growing. Each habit is a step, and together, they form a continuous spiral of growth. Habit 1, be proactive. Take responsibility. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Define your vision. Habit 3, put first things first. Act on priorities. Habit 4, think win-win. Build mutual benefit. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Communicate with empathy. Habit 6, synergize. Create through collaboration. Habit 7, sharpen the saw. Renew continuously. Together, these habits move you from dependence, independence, interdependence, renewal. Covey calls it the maturity continuum. Dependence is, you take care of me. Independence is, I can take care of myself. Interdependence is, we can take care of each other. True effectiveness isn't about independence, it's about interdependence. Because life's greatest achievements are never solo acts, they're symphonies. And the conductor of that symphony is you, calm, centered, balanced. Covey ends his book with a vision, not of success, but of significance. He says, live a principle-centered life. When you live by principles, everything else falls into place. Principles are timeless. People come and go. Trends change. Markets shift. But principles, honesty, integrity, kindness, growth, they never expire. That's what makes the 7 Habits not just a book, but a philosophy, a manual for living, leading, and loving consciously. And here's the poetic truth. Every time you sharpen the saw, you're not starting over, you're starting stronger. Each renewal deepens your capacity to live fully, love deeply, and lead wisely. So take a breath. Pause. Reflect. Ask yourself, when was the last time you sharpened your saw? Maybe it's time to rest your body, to read that book, to listen without judgment, to reconnect with your purpose. Because the secret of effectiveness isn't intensity, it's consistency. And every act of renewal keeps you aligned with the best version of yourself. Covey reminds us, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that experience, if lived consciously, can become something extraordinary. So here's the truth your audience will remember long after the video ends. You don't need to control life to change it. You just need to master yourself. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Put first things first. Think win-win. Seek first to understand. Synergize. Sharpen the saw. That's not just a framework, it's a way of being. A rhythm of life that turns chaos into clarity, noise into purpose, and success into significance. Because effectiveness isn't about what you achieve. It's about who you become. And in that journey of becoming, the saw must always stay sharp.